Now then, here again. Wednesday, 7th of April. Still under lockdown. Things are looking better. I might get to the pub there a week on Friday. Sat outside, but it's a drink in it. Right, I read on the internet somewhere. Somebody said lists suck. And I think there's some truth in that. Especially into relation to Rush albums. For instance, the last Rush album I reviewed, Caress of Steel, I liked a lot. And I thought, that don't want to be 14th, 15th on any list. So, it just doesn't do it justice. So what I've decided to do, that every album, Rush album I review, for that particular period of time, becomes my favourite Rush album. I'm not putting them in any particular order no more. From now on, I'm just going to review. I know which ones I like the best, and I'll leave them to last. But as for the order, nah. So I've called this video "The Case of the Young," because for the past few weeks, my favourite Rush album, can you say that, has been Counterparts. It's the 15th studio album from the band, released on the 19th of October 1993, produced by Peter Collins, his third with the band, and is 54 minutes 23 seconds long. Counterparts is a rock album. It's a complete move away from any keyboard influence, with Alex Lifeson in particular wanted the album to have a predominant role for the guitar. Although in the album's credit notes it lists synthesizers next to Geddy's name, it achieves the purpose and makes this Rush's mostly guitar-dominated album since Moving Pictures. Alex spoke about him and Geddy having emotional ups and downs during the writing process, more so than any other Rush album. Geddy even stated it was a volatile situation, this being the battle of guitar over keyboards. And I'm sure I speak for a lot of Rush fans when I say I am glad the guitar leads the way on this album. And indeed it was eventually marketed so by the record company Atlantic on its release. Neil lyrically expressed his thoughts about role models, experiences, influences, ambition, natural surroundings, equalities and relationships, and also indecision and everyday life, with a notion of duality, contrasts, and this gave way to a sort of connection with every track on the album. The album opens with a track called Animate, and it's just another brilliant opening track from Rush. It works with its spiralling one-paced guitar riff, solid drum and bass foundation, interrupted by a clean, reflective midsection with an African drum influence, building up to a decent short solo from Alex, guiding the tune back to its early tempo and climax. Although the piece is strictly guitar orientated, a layer of keyboards can be detected on close inspection. Lyrically, it's a very complex song. It first gave me the impression it was about two people rather than one. But according to Neil, it relates to one man, probably himself, addressing his feminine side as defined by Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist. This process is demonstrated in the chorus, repeated 4 times in the 6-minute piece, whereby awareness, faults, giving, and bringing to life many different elements have to be grappled with to lift oneself to a highest conscious level. Intricate, elaborate thinking for a simple R&B rhythm piece. However, it also delivers a massive development in the way Neil's ideas are converted into lyrics. The track's lyrics also set the template for the rest of the album. The second track is called Stick It Out. A Rush at times can be like a sponge, soaking up all different musical influences of the period. And here we hear a definite grunge influence. The heaviest piece on the album, one short repeated guitar riff with the addition of yet another classic Rush midsection melodic tempo change. There are quite a few examples of this approach in their work, and it often promotes the track to another level. The track ends with a nice solo from Alex, then back to the main riff. Lyrically, the piece is a play on words. Stick it out, suggesting both endurance and fortitude in one respect, and in another, hold back, be responsible, calculate the consequences of your actions. The track seems to be particularly directed at a young, less mature audience, who are inexperienced individuals willing to develop more subtle ways of interpreting life, often, as I said, which is at odds with their young age. Nice piece of music with an important message, one that would serve many well. Track 3 is cut to the chase. Now, if I was to ask a question, what is the fire that lights itself? What is the engine that drowns itself? What is the rocket that ignites itself? And what is the motor of the Western world? For me, the answer is ambition. And according to Neil himself, it burns with a restless flame. The actual phrase, cut to the chase, is an American one which basically means come to the point, don't waste valuable time. But how do we join up both these elements of the song? For me, these words reflect those of a midlife experience. The statement, when I was a teenager, I wish I knew what I know now, comes to mind. Here Neil is trying, through his art, to influence others. Whether the criticism and failure, what difference can a single person make? Well, let's find out and get on with it. Do it now, is my conclusion. And don't forget, at the time, Neil's next project was his book, The Masked Rider. Musically, it has a gentle beginning, building up to a heavy riff chorus, a solo from Alex, before Geddy plays his usual trick with an alternative melody, and back to the established chorus and finish. So many intricate lyrics in this track, and they're not spotted until one really delves into the piece. Basic message, harness your ambition and do it now. Rush classic. Track 4 is Nobody's Hero. I spent a lot of time thinking about this song lyrically, and on the face of it, particularly after the complexity of the previous track, on face value it looks pretty straightforward. However, I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, and in some ways, it's a focal point from which all the other lyrics on the album should be judged by. From one standpoint, Neil is arguing that as a society, we worship or put on a pedestal the wrong people. Sportsmen, actors, glamour girls should be seen as what they are. We should transfer our appreciation to the real heroes of society as he sees it, i.e. doctors, surgeons, scientists, engineers, individuals who brave unselfish acts, them that have enhanced others and saved others' lives. In doing this, he's also downplaying and evaluating his own role of musician and artist, putting it into some sort of perspective and context as he sees it. It's like a second helping of Limelight, and for me the track is relevant to other pieces on the album. This is an essence of appraisal, been a common feature in a lot of them. Nonetheless, this track demonstrates from what standpoint that appraisal comes from. Musically, the work has a catchy, simple melody with a great, intricate chorus. Played in a stop-start tempo, it eventually becomes a strong, elaborate vessel to get this personal assessment message across. A track I've always appreciated, and even more so now. The next track, Between Sun and Moon. This, it's got 1960s all over it, this. Pete Townsend and the Rolling Stones. And there's nothing wrong with that. Simple, up-tempo piece, throwback rock and roll, and I love it. Lyrically, it's based on a poem what Pard Dubai sent to Neil called There Is a Lake Between Sun and Moon. That poem itself deals with something quite close to Neil's heart, individual self-esteem and the pursuit of excellence. Nevertheless, in his lyrics, Neil has changed the emphasis of the words to one of contemplation, the wonderment of one's natural surroundings. And for each individual to hesitate a while and take it all in. Take a break from the headlong race. Don't look for unearthly explanations. Accept your natural surroundings and the universe for what it is. Ponder on its beauty. Whisper and shout, wonder and doubt, actor and act, wishes and fact are all everyday tasks undertaken by each individual. Put them aside a minute and recognise the value of your natural environment. That's the gist of the song. Smart little piece of rock. Let's move on. Track 6. It is track 6. Is Alien Show. Arrives with a big blockbuster intro before adapting a nice, steady tempo, leading to a strong statement line in the crashing chorus. Unusual solo from Alex, well supported by great drumming and an intricate bass line from Geddy. Straightforward, basic rock from Rush. In the lyrics, the song seems to be appealing to the converted about preconceived notions of race and gender. Neil takes a side of a more progressive, liberal stance, which would have been in its infancy, and regarding forward thinking in 1993. This is against a more traditional conservative outlook, encompassing stricter social boundaries. Strive for change if you are effective. You're not in competition with each other, work together is in the sentiment of the song. The Alien Show is a goal for this type of progressive thinking, one without stereotypes and appropriation. Alien because in 1993, don't forget when this song was wrote, these ideas would be radical and even unheard of in a lot of traditional circles. I wonder what Neil would have to say about these lyrics now, 28 years later, or would his perceptions about this progressive thinking have changed. I don't like the track. It puts a lot of thought. The next track, track 7, is called The Speed of Love. And it's a nice, gentle, mid-tempo track. Simple, chunky guitar part, great bass line, and as Neil states, his most challenging drum part to write on the album. Snappy verse, catchy chorus, and again that familiar Rush feature of midsection. After a great bass part, the track develops an alternative melody and finishes with a familiar chorus. The song is in fact, and I quote Neil, a song about love, not a song of love. How love develops, unremitting, then calms down, is taken for granted, and then appreciated. Love is different things to different people, in different relationships. As individuals, the journey of love is mostly beyond our control, and I'll leave that to that. Drags on a bit, but overall has more pluses than minuses. Double Agent is track number 8. Or if one quotes Geddy, an interesting piece of lunacy, but for me, an exhilarating, intricate, time-changing rock masterpiece of the type that Rush are only Rush are capable of. The quite relaxed beginning acts as camouflage for the chaos that is about to erupt. We have a spoken word narrative similar to the Necromancy on top of a Rage Against the Machine full-on riff, then into a bridge piece before it races into the main unforgettable melodic chorus, which is a standard piece of rock we all expect from Rush. Then back to the narrative, back to the chorus, short solo from Alex, before a build-up to the classic main theme. It's a musical equivalent of being in a traffic jam, then escaping to be able to drive 100 miles an hour. This is Neil's version of Alec La Villa Strangiato, describing the indecision and inconclusiveness of his dreams, and his conscious and subconscious decision-making. At the time he was reading a lot about the FBI and the CIA, so it has an espionage background. One musical part reflects the turmoil, and the other, clarity of purpose. With Double Agent, the listener gets 2 tracks for the price of 1. One of the goofiest we have ever wrote, states Geddy. However, we like it now. I should say not half. I should say a total masterpiece. Compelling listening. In track number 9, Leave That Thing Alone, we have the instrumental of the album. And as per usual with Rush instrumentals, Leave That Thing Alone is made up from parts left over from Alex and Geddy's jam sessions. It's a musical piece that has many twists and turns, tempos and time changes, clean guitar, main theme, keyboard, bass layer that allows Geddy to deliver an excellent self-indulgent bass line, which he improvised a lot during live performances. According to Neil, his part is built around rhythm and blues interplay, Nigerian beats and a jazz pattern, which he says he introduced to make the piece more interesting. Nice work when you can do it, isn't it? But like all of the Rush stuff, it's one of them tracks that really you tend to appreciate live, and you see how good it is and how well played it is. And it's another live event. It's always an event when I saw it live. Moving on. Track 10, Coal Fire. I once met somebody at a gig in Newcastle on the Snakes and Arrows tour, and we was discussing Rush's music, and they weren't very keen on this track. And I was quite surprised because I absolutely love it. Again, it's a song like The Speed of Love, about love, not a song of love. We have two partners described in the song in what one would call a normal male and female relationship, discussing its pros and cons. In my interpretation, the male partner is testing the water a bit, while the female is consistently bringing him back down to earth and to the reality of their situation. The words make for a very interesting discussion between the male and female psyche, with the male showing his ignorance and naivety at the beginning. These are my boundaries, she says. If you stick to them, we'll be all right. Bit like making a deal for a car or an house, really. Obviously, each partner has to make a compromise. Musically, it has a basic rock riff, but what makes this stand out from the crowd is a brilliant melodic chorus, verse and bridge, which are in complete harmony with the gist of the song. It's an awesome achievement from Geddy, and one of his best. I could imagine a group of vocalists making this a great harmony version. 4 minutes and 27 seconds of sheer brilliance, and I love it, and I always will. Everyday Glory is the last track on the album. Last but not least, because Everyday Glory, on close inspection, is quite an interesting piece of music. Some people think it's about child abuse and having a bad home life, but I think the reference to the child at the beginning is similar to the reference to AIDS in Nobody's Hero. It's just pure incidental. Neil's using these as a metaphor. The child basically represents the good in people, and Neil seems to think that it exists in a lot of us. And we should bring it out into the open for the good of society as a whole. It's about setting an example. Do the right things. Everyday glory is the actions of thousands of ordinary people living by standards they believe in. And we shouldn't be hiding away with them. We should be out so that others can follow this light. It's a pleasant piece with an important message. A quite moving song, powerfully played, with a laid-back guitar chords, decent bass line, and Neil never does the simple. Don't ignore this rallying call because it's the end of an album. Heed the message, set them examples, care, and be responsible. Subtle message for the end of the album, often overlooked. In conclusion, Counterparts was a commercial and somewhat critical success. It was followed by a 56-show tour of North America and achieved the goals the band had set out in discussions prior to its recording, which were a more basic approach to the music, guitar, bass and drums, and I for one think they achieved that aim. Indeed, there are some classics on this CD, in particular Animate, Cut to the Chase, Nobody's Hero, Double Agent and Coal Fire. And this is coming from a band who were recording their 15th studio album, who are still full of ideas and purpose. And I would argue that isn't an achievement in itself. Although some of the thinking behind the lyrics is of that period, the music still comes across fresh as ever and is a joy to hear. Might be a track or two too long, i.e. Speed of Love or Alien Show. But that would be nitpicking. And when I play the CD, I play it all, and I don't skip any of the tracks. However, I do think it's a particularly slow burner, but when the penny drops, it's a very rewarding album. Star of the album, Alec's guitar sound is a particular feature. Geddy creates some great melodies and choruses, but for me, Neil in particular stands out. For me, studying the words on the album, I've stood out more on this album than any other up to now. We have an artist here who regards himself on the same level as ordinary people, i.e. his listeners. He states that in Nobody's Hero. He is just turned 40, about to become an author, a man with midlife experiences and wisdom and deep thoughts and emotions. And on this album he transfers them to his lyrics superbly. For instance, for me the lyric of the album, when he's quoting, speaking about the zeal of ambition, it's the motor of the Western world, spinning off to every extreme, pure as a lover's desire, evil as a murderer's dream. It's a time capsule of lyrics from the 1993. Presentation, use, design, cover and sleeve, connecting many carefully arranged parts and details and designs arranged together around opposite and equals. Artwork to study and observe, always finding something new in the motif when you look at the album cover. And it certainly helps towards the understanding, towards the gist of the CD. Little known fact, the expression cut to the chase comes from the silent movies of the Hollywood era, when studio executives use a phrase, thinking the audience would be bored with excessive dialogue, and the black and white movie should progress to the exciting bits at the end. Get on with it, in other words. Oh, and one last thing. The voice spoken at the beginning of Alien Show is Alec's, holding his nostrils and shouting out of my nose. Well, that's my 8th completed, and another one I really enjoyed. Counterparts has been a delight. Now let's move on. Keep safe. I'll see you in another few weeks.